There are two types of people in this world. There is the Christie Brinkley type, and then there is the Beverly D'Angelo type. Well, I guess there is the Chevy Chase type too. Which one are you? National Lampoon's Vacation stars Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, and is directed by Harold Ramis. What is up, guys? Welcome to another Drumdums review. This one might kind of, not shock you, but surprise you a little bit because I'm not doing a horror movie. I'm doing a comedy. And I'm not just a 100% horror channel. I like to call myself 85% horror. But of course I do like, other genres, especially if it's something I'm really into. And I rarely have ever done a comedy on the channel. But I don't mind doing them. And one of my Patreon patrons, Christopher Brownell Jr., he requested that I do National Lampoon's Vacation. And I actually was kind of happy about that. It's kind of refreshing to step outside of, I guess, my comfort zone a little bit. And do a movie that I actually really like. This is a big movie from my childhood, actually. But Chris is of a certain tier on my Patreon page. If you're of a certain tier, then you can request a review, which is what he did. And usually if you do that, I try to get those out as quick as possible. That's like my rule now. But anyway, let's talk about National Lampoon's Vacation. I was actually going to review Christmas Vacation like a year or two ago, because that is like one of my favorite Christmas movies. I love the hell out of it. And we often neglect just Vacation, because I think Christmas Vacation made such a mark for a couple of reasons. One, it's a holiday movie. Holiday movies, they get constant annual replay. And it's a really fun movie. It's a great, funny comedy. It's really funny, actually. But Vacation definitely makes its mark. And I'm not saying people don't talk about Vacation. I do from time to time hear people talking about National Lampoon's Vacation. Chevy Chase is still Chevy Chase in this movie. I was a huge fan of Chevy Chase in the 80s. I think he was one of the funniest guys out there. Spies Like Us is one of my favorite comedies still to this day ever. I just love him in that movie. And really, he's that type of character, that quick-witted, smart-ass type of character. I wouldn't call him quick-witted as Clark Griswold. Clark Griswold is a different animal.
We're 10 hours from the fucking fun park and you want to bail out. Well, I'll tell you something. This is no longer a vacation. It's a quest. It's a quest for fun. I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun. We're all gonna have so much fucking fun we'll need plastic surgery to remove our goddamn smiles. You'll be whistling zippity-doo-dah out of your assholes.
And I think I love that character so much, and I think that's the reason why these vacation movies work so well. If you didn't have Chevy Chase in these movies, then what's the point? He's that effective in these movies. And he makes the actors around him funny.
Can I do your back, honey?
I've already done my back.
Can I do your front?
Go do your own front.
You can tell that he knows how to work with actors to actually bring out the comedy in the best way possible. But anyway, quick plot synopsis. It's a really simple plot. The Griswolds, they're planning their vacation. At the beginning of the movie, it's kind of funny too. Eugene Levy, I didn't even realize was in this. It's been a long time since I've seen this movie, but he plays the car dealer. And in the 80s, it seems like every car dealer was just kind of the biggest piece of crap ever, just crooked. And wanting to sell you their biggest clunker on the lot. I'm not saying those don't exist now. Of course they exist now, but they really honed in on that in the 80s. But Clark, he's buying this new car, and as soon as he gets out of the car, this forklift comes in, lifts the car up, and crushes it while he's like making the deal, which is hilarious. And it's a great tone setter for the type of person that Clark Griswold is. He's the sucker. He's the guy that constantly can't get it right. If you wanted to relate him to somebody today, I would say those Bad Luck Brian memes. That's Clark Griswold. If bad things can happen to a person, it's gonna happen to Clark. But anyway, he wants to go on a vacation from Chicago all the way to California to Wally World. And really, this movie is about the journey and everything that happens along the way.
Roll them up.
And there's just a lot to laugh at, you know, and really you're kind of laughing at just the idea of vacations in general, families. You know, the vacation itself, it's a big family affair. And I think when we're all kids, teenagers, even when we're like tweens, whatever, we all have that memory in the back of our head. We remember that one vacation we went to. I remember the vacation I went to with my best friend Rodney when we were like 14 years old, going to Disney World. You know, we all remember not just the vacation itself, but the journey, the trip to it, especially if you drove there. If you fly, it doesn't really count in my book, because the drive is a big part of that, stopping from hotel to hotel. And this movie takes advantage of that, you know, all the funny little things that can happen along the way. And there's so many little funny anecdotes along the way when they stop off at Cousin Eddie's, pick up Edna to drop her off at her son's house. Let's start off with Cousin Eddie, because we all remember Cousin Eddie from Christmas Vacation. I didn't remember Eddie in this movie that much. And you know what? He doesn't make as big of a mark in this movie as he did in Christmas Vacation, because he's obviously in that movie longer and he's got a lot more memorable lines. But there's still some funny things in that section of the movie, especially with his kids. You know, a very young Jane Krakowski, if you watch 30 Rock, you'll know her. She is a comedic genius, actually. But she kind of steals that segment of the movie, actually, in this. There's that funny line where she's basically bragging that she's, you know, she's great at French kissing.
And I French kiss.
So everybody does that.
Yeah, but Daddy says I'm the best at it.
But then after they leave there, they're taking Aunt Edna. And this is a really cryptic part of the movie. It's like that gallows humor. She literally dies along the way, and Clark, being Clark, he straps her to the hood of the car. So they're literally driving in the rain with the dead aunt on the hood of the car. And I think what makes that so funny is just Clark as a person. You know, he's so selfish. He just wants to get to Wally World. And whatever happens on that journey, if it gets in the way of that, then he's going to have an issue with it. Even if the aunt dies. So much so that they literally leave her in a lawn chair with a note because her son wasn't home.
Okay, let's go.
Also, there is this section of the movie with Christie Brinkley. Christie Brinkley was married to Billy Joel at the time. She was a huge model, probably one of the top models. I guess she was kind of the Cindy Crawford of her days. Christie Brinkley was like of the 80s. Cindy Crawford was the model of the 90s and so on. But her part's pretty funny in this too, because, you know, along the way, she's in this sports car and she constantly just passes them. And she's very flirtatious, and of course Clark, you know, he loves the ladies, and so he starts flirting back, and he gets himself in trouble later on in the movie when they get to this hotel. He pretty much tests himself because she gets in the pool, and pretty much when I'm watching the movie, he does get busted because he gets in the pool with her, and it makes you wonder, would he have went even further if the lights didn't come on and everybody didn't come out? But my intro of the video was there are Beverly D'Angelo people and then there are Christie Brinkley people. I truly believe this. I actually was more attracted to Beverly D'Angelo than I was Christie Brinkley. And maybe that's just a sign of what type of girl I like. It's like the Ginger and Marianne thing. You know, there's people, I'd say half the audience, if not more, preferred Marianne over Ginger. And Ginger was supposed to be like the siren of Gilligan's Island. Am I dating myself? Not like dating myself, dating myself. Now, if I'm reviewing a comedy, I got to talk about a couple of scenes that made me laugh, right? There's a lot of scenes that made me laugh. I'm not going to cover all of them, but two scenes that made me laugh probably the most is the one where the car veers off and they end up in the hood in the middle of the night. And there's this one scene, I don't even want to say it, I'll just post this clip right here so you can see it because it was hilarious when he's asking the guy for directions.
Pardon me. I wonder if you could tell me how to get back on the expressway.
Hey, fuck your mama.
Thank you very much.
And then there's a scene with young Rusty, the son. Rusty played by Anthony Michael Hall, by the way, who's great in this, actually. But there's a scene where they're having a father-son moment, and you know, he's giving him what he thinks is his first beer. And as he's talking to him, Rusty downs that thing like he's a pro. And by the way, isn't it funny that like in all the vacation movies, the kids are different ages, and I'm not talking about properly. Like in the later movies, they'll be younger. It's weird. And that's definitely on purpose. Now, as far as any cons for this movie, this is a movie of the early 80s, and it is a certain type of comedy, what I call like a slapstick comedy. Slapstick comedy, it's not for everybody. I'm a slapstick guy though, and I'm a Chevy Chase guy. So those two things are great for me. I mean, Chevy Chase is slapstick anyway. So I laughed my ass off through this, but take my wife for instance. She does not like slapstick comedy whatsoever at all. She won't laugh at it. She's just not that type of person. She's more on the sarcastic side. She likes sarcastic humor. I like sarcastic humor too. I'll laugh at anything actually. But there is some like repetitive jokes too, like where the car goes off the road or goes out of control. That happens like 2 or 3 times in the movie. It's really funny the first time, especially because Clark falls asleep. The car just kind of goes on its own and he ends up like parked perfectly at the hotel by the time he wakes up. But it was really funny. But the con is there's a couple more scenes like that, and you know, they don't all land, I guess. And then I guess that is kind of the big con of this movie too, is there's some jokes that aren't gonna land for people, you know, even if it's not slapstick. For me, there were some times I was like, that was kind of a dated joke, which means it's like a joke that was probably funny in the 80s because that type of joke worked more in the 80s than it does now. And if you watch the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. And I didn't really talk about the big finale when they finally get to Wally World and they get arrested, because when Clark doesn't get his way, he pitches a big old fit, and that's what he does. And of course, it costs them. But really, I found the behind the scenes of that scene even more interesting than the scene itself. When you're shooting a movie, you're usually gonna have to do the scene more than once. And especially if you're doing a roller coaster scene, that's not gonna be fun. And from what I was reading, like a lot of the cast were getting mega sick because they constantly had to ride the roller coaster over and over and over. Oh my God, I would hate that. I don't like roller coasters to begin with. So let's just say they earned their money that day. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna give this a low purchase worthy. It's a vacation movie. Vacation movies are fun. You know, it's definitely not a waste of 2 hours. You know, it's Clark. Just enjoy Clark and you'll be fine. So anyway, guys, post your thoughts on National Lampoon's Vacation in the comments. I will be doing Christmas Vacation this holiday season, so look for that. And also be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day, and on Fridays, Rudy Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Hey, I got the classic Drumdums. I haven't worn this shirt in a while, actually. Anyway, thanks, guys. Drumdum out.